We've all heard of Hoth, Mustafar and Tatooine, but what if I told you that there were planets in Star Wars that you didn't know about and could quite literally blow your mind? The planets I'm about to share with you today are all extremely unique and interesting in their own way, and I'm sure that even if you're a big Star Wars fan, you're bound to learn something new today. I'll start by mentioning some planets from Star Wars Legends universe, and I'll save my favourite two planets for the end, which are not only canon, but I believe that they're the most fascinating planets in the entire Star Wars universe. Let's kick off with our first planet, Xenomesicot. What's crazy about Xenomesicot is that it was actually located in the Yuuzhan Vong's original galaxy, but it later moved to the main Star Wars galaxy. And you might be wondering, how the hell did a planet move from one galaxy to another? And the answer to this one's pretty crazy, and you're probably not going to believe me if I tell you, but the planet has a hyperdrive that was built into the planet itself. So this effectively meant that the planet could literally move and even jump to hyperspace. So yes, Xenomesicot was literally a moving and mobile planet.
It's not true! That's impossible!
Not only that, but Xenomesicot was home to some of the fastest ships in the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi actually visited the planet and got themselves a ship known as the Japetha. And I'll admit it, it looks like a toy you would probably buy a 3-year-old kid for his birthday, but apparently it was pretty fast. I should also add that Xenomesicot had quite a unique climate. The upper part of the planet, otherwise known as
the high ground,
was a snowy area. However, in direct contrast to this, the rest of the planet was made up with a jungle. So you've got snow next to a jungle. I think that's pretty unique, right? Next up we have Iego. Iego is a mythical planet and it didn't appear on any star charts or orbiter sun. In fact, it was so mythical that people called it a tale and they didn't believe that it existed. What's even more interesting about this planet is that the residents of Iego were not subject to time or hunger, meaning that people who lived there literally didn't age and they never had to eat anything. Pretty crazy, right? But it doesn't even end there. Iego had 1,000 moons, and on one of these moons lived a mysterious species known as angels. Angels were beautiful and kind, and they could fly, and they could even fly through space itself. They were able to sing as well, but this singing caused them to be considered dangerous. Passers-by would become hypnotized by their voices, and it often caused them to crash into Iego itself. Up next we have Ithor, which was home of the Ithorians. When I say Ithorians, you might not know which species I'm referring to, but when I show you this, I'm sure you'd have seen them around in the Star Wars universe. The planet was made up of a sacred jungle which Ithorians worshipped. No one actually lived on the planet's jungle surface, and entry to the jungle was completely forbidden. So instead, the Ithorians built and lived in floating cities so that they didn't have to tread on their sacred holy ground. What's also unique about Ithor is that Ithorians held a celebration every 3 years called Time of Meeting. In this celebration, all Ithorians met up at the planet Ithor and celebrated together. So this literally meant that there were billions of Ithorians coming from all over the galaxy and returned back to Ithor all at the same time to participate in the celebration. Next up on our list, we have Ryloth. The planet didn't rotate around the sun and remained permanently locked in place. This made the top half of the planet permanently face the sun, and this part of the planet was known as the Brightlands because it was constantly in daytime and the area became a desert. The lower half of the planet was constantly in nighttime and is known as the Nightlands. The Brightlands were deemed as too harsh conditions to live in due to how hot they were, and they were used to send clan leaders out to die in. The Nightlands, which were the area that was permanently in darkness, was known for having dangerous monsters. As you would imagine, people couldn't really live in the Brightlands, and they couldn't really live in the Nightlands. Nightlands were too dangerous, Brightlands, well, they were too bright. So the only habitable part of the planet was a thin strip in the middle which ran across the entire planet. So people only lived there. If you've made it this far into the video, congratulations.
But you are not a Jedi yet.
Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.
And fulfill your destiny.
Interesting Star Wars videos every single Friday.
Do it.
Now, it's impossible to talk about this topic without touching upon two of the most extraordinary planets that existed in the Star Wars universe, which actually existed in the canon universe. Firstly, one you're all gonna know, we have Mortis. Mortis was unlike any other planet in the Star Wars universe, more so than any of the others I've mentioned in this video. Mortis couldn't be entered directly, and instead you had to enter through a monolith, which opened up and shined a white beam of light, sucking you in, basically. The monolith also had no fixed position, and it was just able to appear out of thin air. The planet is almost a fantasy in itself. It had floating mountains, an exceptionally amplified connection to the Force, constantly changing and evolving landscapes as the day went on. It's safe to say that Mortis was trippy as hell. But what's most spectacular about Mortis was its Force wielders that lived there. Force wielders were near immortal godly beings who were capable of doing this. When Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan visited, the father wanted Anakin to stay and maintain the balance between his children, the son and the daughter. After Anakin refused, the father warned Anakin that
Your selfishness shall haunt you, and the galaxy.
Our second planet in canon is known as the Wellspring of Life. It's located in the very center of the Star Wars galaxy and is home to the most powerful species in Star Wars canon. And yes, even more powerful than the Mortis gods themselves, as much as I don't like to admit it. The Wellspring of Life actually had no official name, and like Mortis, it didn't appear on any official star map. The planet was said to be the birthplace of midichlorians themselves, which later spread out across the whole galaxy. No one who was on the Wellspring of Life, like Iago, was affected by hunger or thirst, and all the planet's creatures were actually created by the Force themselves. So this meant that if one of the creatures were to be removed from the planet, it would disappear completely. The most interesting thing about the Wellspring of Life was the Forced Priestesses. Whilst it's not officially confirmed in canon, the Force Priestesses appear to be George Lucas's invention known as the Wills, who were beings that could communicate with midichlorians and are said to control the entire galaxy, including how events unfolded in the universe. What is confirmed in canon, however, is that Force Priestesses held the secret to retaining one's consciousness after death, which is why Qui-Gon asked Yoda to go to the Wellspring of Life and learn from the Force Priestesses.
Why are you here?
Told I was to learn from you. That showed me you could. How to manifest my life after death.
Not only did the Force Priestesses hold this secret, but they also held the secret to immortality, which is pretty crazy. And I think they're the only species in the entire Star Wars canon that holds the secret to immortality, because even the Mortis gods themselves, their immortality rested on the father being alive, so it's not true immortality. Let me know in the comments what your favourite Star Wars planet is. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this selection of Star Wars planets. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.